Los Angeles, California, 1968. In the exclusive training facility of the Los Angeles Athletic Club. Bruce Lee, now famous from the Green Hornet but still fighting for respect in the martial arts world, was about to face the most technically skilled opponent of his career. The encounter that day would be witnessed by only a select few because those present knew this wasn't just another challenge or demonstration. This was real. This was Olympic-level skill versus street-proven technique. This was Bruce Lee's speed put to the ultimate test. What you're about to hear is a story that only a handful of people can confirm. A story about a challenge that came from the pinnacle of amateur sports. A story about pride, preparation, at the end a confrontation that would settle once and for all whether Bruce's famous speed was camera tricks or devastating reality. If those witnesses hadn't been there that day, this moment would have been lost to whispers and rumor. Some say it was the fight that validated everything Bruce taught. Others claim it was the moment Olympic martial arts learned to respect non-traditional systems. But one thing is certain. What happened in that training facility on that cool November evening would remain largely unknown to the world for decades. This is that story. The year was 1968, and Bruce Lee was at a crossroads. The Green Hornet had been cancelled after one season, leaving him more famous but still struggling to break through Hollywood's barriers. He had returned to teaching, opening a third Junfan Gung Fu Institute in Los Angeles, or training celebrities like Steve McQueen and James Coburn. He had refined his Jeet Kune Do philosophy even further, but the martial arts establishment still saw him as a showman, as an actor who did flashy moves for cameras, as someone who had never proven himself in legitimate competition. And so, Bruce found himself constantly defending his approach, explaining that real fighting and sport competition were different animals, that what worked on the street didn't always translate to tournaments with rules and point systems. The Los Angeles Athletic Club was prestigious and exclusive. Founded in 1880, it catered to the city's elite athletes and wealthy members. The training facilities were world-class, used by Olympic hopefuls and professional athletes. The fifth-floor training gymnasium was particularly impressive. At full regulation size with professional-grade equipment, floor-to-ceiling mirrors, and enough space for multiple sports to practice simultaneously. Among those who trained there regularly was a man named Victor Chen. Not his birth name. He'd been born Chen Wei in Taiwan, but he'd Americanized it after moving to the United States at age 12 to pursue his Olympic dreams. Victor was 26 years old in 1968. Standing 5'10", weighing 165 pounds of precisely conditioned muscle. And he was, without exaggeration, one of the finest martial artists America had ever produced. Victor had represented the United States in Taekwondo at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, where the sport was featured as a demonstration event. He'd won his division, earning international recognition and respect. He'd continued competing after Tokyo, on dominating the American tournament circuit, holding multiple national championships in both forms and sparring. His technique was textbook perfect, every movement drilled through tens of thousands of repetitions, every kick measured for maximum efficiency within tournament rules. But Victor had opinions about Bruce Lee, strong opinions. He'd watched the Green Hornet, seen Bruce's demonstrations, heard the stories about incredible speed and power. And he thought it was exactly that. Stories, camera tricks, wire work, choreography designed to look impressive to audiences who didn't understand real martial arts. To Victor, Bruce represented everything wrong with martial arts in America: the commercialization, the Hollywood glamorization, the preference for flash over substance. Real martial arts, Victor believed, were proven in competition, only in tournaments where judges scored techniques objectively, where rules ensured fairness, where athletes tested themselves against other trained fighters. Bruce Lee had never competed, had never submitted himself to that crucible. Therefore, his reputation was built on sand. On a Tuesday evening in November, Victor was training at the Los Angeles Athletic Club, working through his forms with the precision that had won him Olympic recognition. His coach, Master Park, a Korean grandmaster who'd trained multiple champions, was providing corrections and encouragement. The gymnasium was relatively empty, just a few other athletes working out, the typical Tuesday evening crowd. That's when Dan Inosanto walked in with Bruce Lee. Dan was a regular at the athletic club, had a membership through his work as a martial arts instructor, and he'd brought Bruce to work out, to use the superior facilities, to train in a space larger than what his school offered. Master Park noticed them immediately. He recognized Dan, knew his reputation as a serious martial artist, and he recognized Bruce from television. Victor finished his form and walked over to his coach, grabbing a towel to wipe sweat from his face. Master Park gestured subtly toward Bruce. "That's the actor," Master Park said in Korean, his tone making clear this wasn't a compliment. "The one from the Green Hornet." "I know," Victor replied, also in Korean. "I've seen his show. Lots of wire work and camera speed manipulation." Master Park nodded. "He teaches some kind of mixed style, calls it Jeet Kune Do, claims traditional martial arts are too rigid." Victor's expression hardened. "So traditional martial arts put me in the Olympics. Traditional training has produced champions for centuries. What has his approach produced besides television appearances?" "Perhaps you should ask him," Master Park suggested, and there was something in his tone that sounded like a challenge. Bruce and Dan were warming up on the other side of the gymnasium, going through stretches and basic movements. Bruce noticed the two men watching him, recognized the body language, the expressions. He'd seen it before. Skepticism mixed with territorial defensiveness. Victor made the decision quickly. He walked across the gymnasium, his coach following, and approached Bruce directly. His voice was loud enough to carry, loud enough that the other athletes in the facility stopped what they were doing to watch. "Bruce Lee," Victor said, on his English perfect, but carrying a slight accent. "I'm Victor Chen, Olympic Taekwondo, 1964. Tokyo Games, multiple national champion." Bruce straightened from his stretch, his expression neutral but his eyes alert. "Victor Chen, I've heard your name. You're very accomplished." "Thank you," Victor replied, his tone suggesting he didn't need Bruce's acknowledgement. "I've heard your name too. From the Green Hornet. Very entertaining show." The word entertaining carried clear implication. Not serious, not real, just performance. If you're watching this story and learning about Bruce Lee's confrontation with an Olympic champion, a challenge that tested whether his speed was real or just film tricks, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is the kind of secret encounter that reveals the truth about Bruce Lee's actual fighting ability. Bruce chose his words carefully. "I appreciate that you enjoy the show. Acting isn't my primary focus, but it pays bills while I develop my martial arts system." Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your martial arts system, Jeet Kune Do, I've heard about it. You claim traditional styles are too limited, too bound by rules and forms." Bruce shook his head slightly. "I don't claim they're limited. I say they're optimized for specific contexts. Tournament competition with rules is one context. Street fighting with no rules is another. Different contexts require different approaches." "And which context have you been tested in?" Victor pressed. "Because I've competed in the Olympics, in national championships, in tournaments against the best martial artists in America. I've proven my techniques work under pressure against skilled opponents." "Have you?" The gymnasium had gone completely silent now. Every athlete was watching, sensing this conversation was heading somewhere confrontational. Dan Inosanto moved closer to Bruce, concerned about where this was going. "I've been in challenge matches," Bruce replied evenly. "Private matches against skilled opponents. I've tested my techniques extensively against resistance." "Challenge matches," Victor repeated dismissively. "Private matches with no judges, no rules, no objective verification. Just stories you can tell however you want afterward. Meanwhile, your fame comes from a television show where your speed is enhanced by cameras and editing. You're fast on film, Mr. Lee, but film can make anyone look fast." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Bruce was being called a fraud directly and publicly, hazed by an Olympic athlete whose credentials were unquestionable. The other witnesses in the gymnasium waited to see how Bruce would respond. Bruce looked at Victor for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but carrying clearly in the silent space. "You think my speed is camera tricks?" Victor nodded. "I think your reputation is built on television editing and Hollywood exaggeration. I think if you faced a real Olympic-level martial artist under real conditions, your techniques would be exposed as flashy, but ineffective." "All right," Bruce said simply. "Then let's test it. Right here, right now. No cameras, no editing, no tricks. You can verify with your own eyes and body whether my speed is real. Victor's eyebrows raised slightly, not expecting Bruce to accept so directly. You want to spar? We can establish rules, Bruce replied. Or we can do this without rules. Your choice. You're the Olympic champion, the one who believes in competition. Tell me what format would satisfy you. Master Park stepped forward, his role shifting from coach to mediator. Gentlemen, if this is going to happen, we should establish clear boundaries. This is a private athletic club, not a tournament venue. We need to ensure this doesn't result in injuries that create legal problems. Victor looked at his coach, then back at Bruce. Full contact sparring. 3 2-minute rounds. We'll count knockdowns, significant strikes, dominant positions. These witnesses can judge. He gestured at the other athletes who'd gathered around. Fair enough? Bruce nodded. But I have one request. No protective gear, no headgear, no shin guards, no gloves. If we're testing whether my techniques work against Olympic-level skill, we should test under conditions as close to real fighting as possible. Victor hesitated. That changes the dynamic significantly. Without protective gear, injuries become much more likely. I thought you wanted to prove my speed was just film tricks, Bruce said quietly. You can't do that if we're wearing equipment that slows movement and reduces sensitivity. Without gear, you'll be able to feel exactly how fast and precise my techniques are. Victor looked at Master Park, who nodded slowly. Very well, no protective equipment. But we stop immediately if anyone is injured beyond ability to continue safely. They cleared space in the center of the gymnasium, other athletes moving equipment and marking out a rough fighting area about 20 feet square. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. This wasn't a scheduled match or a tournament bout. This was a spontaneous test between an Olympic champion and the controversial martial artist who claimed traditional competition had limitations. Dan Inosanto pulled Bruce aside, his voice urgent and quiet. Bruce, this guy is legitimate. Olympic athlete, national champion, probably 10,000 hours of competitive experience. This isn't like the challenge matches you've done before. I know, Bruce replied calmly. That's why it's important. If Jeet Kune Do can't handle Olympic-level technique, then I need to know that. If it can, then maybe people will stop claiming my speed is just camera tricks. But he's trained specifically for competition, Dan pressed. He knows how to score points, how to work within time frames, how to use rules to his advantage. I know, Bruce repeated. Watch carefully. You're going to see the difference between training for sport and training for combat. Victor was warming up on the opposite side of the cleared space, throwing practice kicks that whistled through the air, each one technically perfect. His flexibility allowing head-height kicks with minimal telegraphing. His conditioning was evident in how he moved, no wasted energy, complete control, the product of years of elite-level training. Master Park addressed both fighters and the gathered witnesses. 2-minute rounds, 3 rounds total. I'll time on my watch. We stop for knockdowns lasting more than 3 seconds, for any injury that prevents continuation, or if either fighter verbally submits. Understood? Both men nodded. Master Park looked at his watch. When I say begin, you start. When I say stop, you stop immediately. Agree? Agreed, both fighters said simultaneously. Master Park raised his hand. Round 1. Begin. Victor and Bruce moved toward each other cautiously, both fighters too experienced to rush in blindly. They circled, measuring distance, reading each other's positioning, looking for openings or patterns. Victor threw the first technique, a fast roundhouse kick aimed at Bruce's midsection, textbook taekwondo, his hip rotation perfect, his supporting leg balanced. Bruce moved. Not away from the kick, but toward it, stepping inside its arc before it could develop full power, and his hand shot out in a straight punch toward Victor's exposed face. Victor's head snapped back, pulling away from the punch just barely. Bruce's fist passing maybe an inch from his nose. See, Victor reset quickly, his Olympic training showing in how fast he recovered, but his expression had changed. That punch had been genuinely fast, faster than what he'd expected, faster than what cameras could artificially create. They engaged again, Victor throwing a combination, jab reverse punch roundhouse kick, a standard tournament pattern. Bruce slipped the jab, redirected the reverse punch with a pak sao, and before Victor's kick could launch, Bruce's low side kick snapped toward Victor's supporting knee. Victor pulled his leg back instinctively, recognizing the danger, and the kick missed by inches, but his combination was disrupted, his rhythm broken. Bruce didn't let him reset. He pressed forward with a rapid series of straight punches, his hands moving in blurs, 5, 6, 7 strikes in perhaps 2 seconds. Victor covered up, see his arms protecting his head, his Olympic defensive training allowing him to weather the assault without taking clean hits. But he was forced backward, his back nearly hitting the wall of the fighting area before Master Park called time. Stop, separate. Victor stepped back, breathing hard, his forearms showing red marks from blocking Bruce's punches. His expression was no longer dismissive or confident. It was focused, analytical, respectful. Bruce returned to his side of the area, barely breathing hard, his conditioning evident. And if you're enjoying this story, if you're fascinated by this Olympic champion versus Bruce Lee confrontation, hit that like button because it helps more people discover these true accounts of Bruce Lee's real fighting ability. Dan leaned in. How do you feel? Good, Bruce replied. He's very technical, are very well trained. But he's thinking in tournament patterns, attacking to score points rather than to damage. That creates predictability. Master Park was checking on Victor, who waved off his coach's concern. I'm fine, but his speed is real. That's not camera work. I know, Master Park said quietly. Be careful. He's not just fast, he's reading your patterns. Adapt. Round 2, Master Park called. Begin. Victor came out more cautiously this time, his approach more measured. He'd learned from round 1 that rushing in against Bruce's speed was dangerous. He threw probing techniques, testing reactions, trying to establish a rhythm that would let him work within his Olympic training. Bruce let him establish that rhythm. Let Victor throw 2 kicks, a punch, another kick, building a pattern. Then on the 5th technique. When Victor threw the same roundhouse kick he'd thrown 3 times already, Bruce intercepted it. His timing was perfect. As Victor's kick came forward, Bruce's shin rose to check it, but instead of just blocking, Bruce's hands shot forward simultaneously, grabbing Victor's extended leg at the ankle and behind the knee. Victor's eyes widened, recognizing the danger instantly. In Olympic Taekwondo, leg grabs weren't allowed. He trained for years under rules that prevented this exact situation. His balance was compromised, his supporting leg vulnerable, and Bruce was in position to sweep, throw, or strike. Bruce didn't do any of those things. He held the position for maybe 1 second, demonstrating the opening, then released Victor's leg and stepped back, giving him space to reset. The message was clear. In Olympic competition with rules against leg grabs, that kick would score points. In a real fight without rules, that kick would end with Victor on the ground. Victor understood the lesson immediately. His Olympic training, while incredibly refined, had built-in vulnerabilities because it optimized for specific rules. Techniques that scored points in competition created openings that could be exploited in unrestricted fighting. They engaged again, this time Victor mixing up his patterns more, trying to be less predictable. He threw a spinning back kick, a flashy technique but genuinely powerful when executed by someone of his skill level. Bruce saw it coming, read the wind-up in Victor's shoulders, and simply wasn't there when the kick arrived. He'd moved off the line by maybe 6 inches, letting the kick sail past harmlessly, and countered with a low oblique kick to Victor's knee, stopping just short of hyperextending the joint. Victor pulled his leg back reflexively, understanding that if Bruce had followed through, his tournament career could have ended right there. Master Park called time. Stop. Round 2 complete. Victor walked back to his corner, his breathing labored now, sweat running down his face. His coach handed him water. He's dismantling your Olympic techniques, Master Park said bluntly. Every pattern you've trained, every combination that won you championships, he's reading them and showing you their weaknesses. I know, Victor said, frustration evident in his voice. Everything I do, he's already responding before I finish, like he knows what's coming. Because he does, Master Park replied. Tournament competition creates patterns. Right, you've drilled those patterns until they're instinctive. But that predictability is a weakness against someone trained to exploit it. Bruce was speaking with Dan on his side. He's extremely skilled, Bruce said. Best technical fighter I've faced, but he's handicapped by his training. He's trying to score points instead of finish the fight. Dan nodded. Are you going to finish it? If he wants round 3, Bruce replied, but I think he's already learned what he needed to learn. Master Park approached them. Mr. Lee, may I speak with you? Bruce nodded. You've proven your point, Master Park said quietly. Your speed is real, your techniques are effective, and you've shown that Olympic training has limitations in unrestricted contexts. I'm asking you, as Victor's coach and as someone who respects what you've demonstrated, please don't humiliate him in round 3. He came here with arrogance, but he's learning humility. That's valuable. Bruce considered this. I have no interest in humiliation. I accepted this challenge to prove my speed wasn't camera tricks. I think that's been demonstrated. If Victor acknowledges that, we can stop here. Master Park returned to Victor and spoke in Korean. The Olympic champion listened, his pride warring with pragmatism, then nodded slowly. He walked to the center of the fighting area where Bruce waited. If you've made it this far in the story, leave a comment below telling me what you think about this confrontation between Olympic-level technique and Bruce Lee's approach. I read every comment and want to know what resonates with you. Mr. Lee, Victor said formally, I came here tonight, believing your reputation was built on camera tricks and Hollywood exaggeration. You've proven me wrong. Your speed is real, your techniques are effective, and you've exposed limitations in my Olympic training that I didn't know existed. Bruce extended his hand. You're an exceptional martial artist. Olympic-level skill is rare and impressive. What you've learned through competition has tremendous value. Victor shook his hand firmly. But not complete value, not sufficient for contexts outside tournament rules. That's what you've shown me. Different contexts require different optimization, Bruce agreed. Olympic competition is one context, highly refined and valuable. Street fighting is another. Both are real, both require skill, but they're not the same thing. The gathered witnesses began applauding, as recognizing they'd seen something remarkable. Not a decisive victory for either fighter, but a demonstration of mutual respect and learning. Over the following weeks, Victor Chen became a regular visitor to Bruce's school in Los Angeles. He trained in Jeet Kune Do alongside Bruce's other students, integrating concepts that filled gaps in his Olympic training. His competition performance actually improved, his tournament record benefiting from the enhanced adaptability and pattern breaking he learned from Bruce. Master Park, witnessing the transformation in his student, began incorporating some of Bruce's principles into his own teaching, recognizing that even Olympic-level coaching could evolve and improve. Before we finish, I need to ask one favor. If this story revealed something about Bruce Lee you never knew, if you learned about his confrontation with an Olympic champion that tested whether his speed was real, please share this video. Send it to someone who thinks Bruce was just a movie star, who doubts whether his abilities were genuine. Sharing helps preserve these true stories. The encounter at the Los Angeles Athletic Club that November evening was never publicized. No cameras recorded it, no journalists reported it, no official record exists. But the witnesses carried the knowledge, and over the years, in small gatherings of serious martial artists, the story was carefully shared. Dan Inosanto would occasionally mention to trusted students that he'd once watched Bruce face an Olympic Taekwondo champion who'd claimed Bruce's speed was film tricks, and within 2 rounds the Olympian was learning rather than challenging. Master Park, in his later years, teaching in Korea, would tell advanced students about the night he watched Olympic technique that meet unrestricted combat philosophy, and both sides learned something valuable. Victor Chen continued competing, eventually coaching the U.S. Olympic Taekwondo team in the 1980s. In interviews, when asked about influences on his coaching philosophy, he would sometimes mention a martial artist who taught him that even Olympic-level training had room for evolution and adaptation, though he rarely mentioned Bruce Lee by name. In 1998, Victor was interviewed for a martial arts documentary. The interviewer asked about the greatest lesson he'd learned in his competitive career. Victor's answer was thoughtful and revealing. I once challenged someone, claiming their reputation was built on camera tricks rather than real skill. But within minutes, they demonstrated that everything I'd learned through Olympic training, while valuable and refined, was optimized for a specific rule set, They showed me that real fighting had dimensions my competition experience hadn't explored. That humility, that understanding that expertise in one context doesn't mean expertise in all contexts, that was the most important lesson of my entire martial arts career. The interviewer pressed for details, but Victor simply smiled and said, "Some lessons are too valuable to reduce to anecdotes." When Bruce Lee died in 1973, Victor Chen sent a private condolence letter to Linda Lee. In it, he described the November evening when Bruce had proven his speed was real, had demonstrated techniques that worked beyond tournament contexts, and had shown respect even when exposing limitations. He thanked Bruce for the lesson in humility and for inspiring him to continue evolving as both competitor and coach. Hit that subscribe button one final time if you haven't already, because Bruce Lee's story contains encounters like this, challenges from elite athletes who tested whether his reputation was earned, demonstrations that proved his capabilities were real and documented by credible witnesses, true accounts that show the legend was built on verifiable skill. The legacy of that Los Angeles Athletic Club encounter extends far beyond the individuals involved. It represented a meeting point between Olympic-level sport, martial arts, and combat-optimized systems, between rule-based competition and unrestricted fighting philosophy. Neither approach was proven superior, both were proven incomplete, and from that incompleteness came integration and growth. Victor Chen had Olympic credentials, national championships, technique refined through thousands of competitive hours. Bruce Lee had never competed in the Olympics, had never won a tournament medal, had built his reputation through demonstrations and private challenges. By every conventional measure in competitive martial arts, Victor should have dominated, his proven record overwhelming Bruce's unverified claims. But in 2 rounds totaling 4 minutes, Bruce demonstrated that fighting effectiveness couldn't be measured solely through competitive success, that different contexts required different optimization, that someone who'd never won a tournament could still possess devastating ability when rules were removed. Victor said, "You're just fast on film." I challenged Bruce to prove his speed was real without cameras or editing, expected to expose Bruce as a Hollywood creation whose abilities were exaggerated. What happened next changed Victor's entire understanding of martial arts, transformed him from skeptic to student, proved that Bruce's speed was not only real, but had been developed specifically to work in contexts where Olympic training had limitations. The witnesses saw it all, saw 2 masters test each other, and both emerge better for the experience, saw respect earned through honest confrontation and humble learning. This is that story. This is why Olympic champions learn to respect non-traditional systems. This is proof that Bruce Lee's speed wasn't camera tricks, but the result of obsessive optimization and thousands of hours of training for unrestricted combat rather than tournament points.